Welcome to The Backstory, a podcast from the North Dakota News Cooperative that takes an in-depth look at the stories we're reporting for you. I'm Sabrina Halvorson, CEO of the North Dakota News Cooperative. Joining me is Michael Standaert, our lead reporter. So the article we're talking about this time is titled United for Ukraine Parolees in North Dakota Awaiting Fate. And I wanted to start out with some of the terminology, actually, because one of the things that I have seen online, in fact, it wasn't one of our readers, it was coming from someplace else online, but I was watching some people commenting to other things online, and one of the things that they're not understanding is the terminology parolees. Because when we hear the word parolees, we automatically think of somebody that has committed a crime, has been through our criminal justice system. But when we're talking about refugees and immigrants, parolees has a completely different meaning. Can you explain that to us, Michael?
Sure. I think humanitarian parolees have been around. The system has been around, I think, since the 1950s in the US, bringing in people that aren't necessarily refugees, but they're being removed from a security situation, whether it's a war or some kind of other effort or other issue, and temporarily allowed to be in the US to work and live. They're different from refugees. Refugees often wait for years at a refugee camp and get processed over time. And that can be a long, cumbersome process. These parolees are usually sponsored by American citizens who help to place them in communities. They're basically their support system. They don't get the same benefits that refugees do who've come in through the refugee process. Does that explain it?
Yeah, so I think that's a good explanation. It's just a different type, not necessarily going through the refugee process, like you said. It's a different category for these immigrants who are here. And again, I think it's really important to point out that it does not mean that they have anything criminal in their history at all. It's just a different terminology for this system.
Yeah, it's a different terminology. There's so many different names and terminologies thrown around for immigrants, temporary workers. There's all these different terms, and it can get confusing for a lot of people. Humanitarian parolees are allowed in the country temporarily for a certain period of time. I think for the Ukrainians in the United for Ukraine program, it was a 2 year or 3 year period. And that status, their status is going to be reviewed here pretty soon.
So when you were talking with the people that you spoke with for this article, what were some of the things that really stuck out to you that you heard?
One, there are so many things that stuck out. I mean, a lot of the Ukrainians, and that was a difficult thing with this story. I wanted to speak to Ukrainians that are here through their sponsors and people who are close to that community. I tried to reach out to them, had some messages to some of them. No one really wanted to talk about this situation. I think in some cases, they might feel betrayed in a sense by kind of the about turn of the US government over the last couple months in how Ukraine is viewed. And some people in the US still view Ukraine as an ally. Others see it as, okay, we want to get out of this war situation. We don't really want to be involved anymore. But the US is involved. They became involved from the beginning. And there's a bit of a sense of betrayal. There's just a sense of being on edge, according to the sponsors and people who are close to those communities. They don't know what their situation is. They've seen how 532,000 other humanitarian parolees were told they would have to leave the US in April. Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, Venezuelans. So they feel the writing is on the wall that they will probably have to leave too. There is some discussion in the Senate about potentially extending their stay with a bill sponsored by Senator Murkowski of Alaska and Senator Durbin of Illinois. I spoke with Senator Kramer here in North Dakota, and he's interested in that effort. He's not sure if he would back it yet. He's still talking to the people that are involved in crafting that. And one thing is he doesn't know if it's going to be necessary. He doesn't know what the Trump administration will do exactly with the Ukrainians who are here.
If we're looking at it through the broader picture of this and how this could affect the state in general and more people in the state and people who are Americans here in North Dakota, what are your thoughts on that?
So I spoke with one administrator at a nursing home facility in Carrington, and he will lose around 8 staff members, and that's approximately 10% of his staff. He could lose them next month if they decide that program is canceled in April. And we know there's about 600 to 800 Ukrainians who have settled in the state. At least 600 of those, or from the numbers, it's hard to track down the numbers. So from the numbers I heard, there are around 600 adults and maybe a couple hundred more children. From what people say, all those adults are working. They're in jobs that are difficult to fill in the state, service jobs at a nursing home, this kind of thing. There's a company, Comdel, that apparently employs a lot of Ukrainians. Dakota Gas, I heard, had a few. And for an engineering job, that's if that person had to leave, or if those people had to leave, they would have difficulty finding somebody to replace that person. It's not just a moral issue, it's an economic issue for a lot of communities in the state who've welcomed Ukrainians from the United for Ukraine program.
That again, reporter Michael Standaert on his article titled United for Ukraine Parolees in North Dakota Awaiting Fate. You can read that story on our website at newscoopnd.org or in one of our local newspaper partners. For the North Dakota News Cooperative, I'm Sabrina Halvorson. This has been The Backstory.